Welcome back to the deep dive. You've given us, well, quite a stack of sources here, all focused on one specific, pretty major executive action.
Yeah, a really significant one.
So we're diving straight into policy analysis today. We're looking at how, the highest levels of government frame, mandate, and then defend a really big policy shift.
Exactly. We're talking about Executive Order 14183. It was signed January 27, 2025.
Okay.
And the official title is Prioritizing Military Excellence and Readiness. Basically, this was the order used to explicitly ban transgender people from serving in the armed forces.
Right. So our mission here is to give you the ultimate shortcut to understanding this key document. We'll unpack the administration's stated purpose, look at the really quick implementation steps, and trace the immediate and, frankly, dramatic legal fallout.
And we're sticking strictly to the text of the order and the reported facts in your sources.
Absolutely. Why should you care? Well, this is really a case study in how a major policy moves from the signing pen straight into the courtroom. It shows how specific technical language is used to make sweeping changes and how fast the courts have to jump in.
And it's important to understand the context right from the start. This EO, 44183, it didn't just create something new. First, it specifically revoked the previous order, EO 14004.
Ah, right. That was the one titled Enabling All Qualified Americans to Serve Their Country in Uniform.
Exactly. So canceling that one right away set the stage. It signaled a fundamental change in military personnel policy.
And the justification, the why, giving in those first sections of 14183, that's key, isn't it?
It is. The stated goal, the core objective, is all about maintaining military excellence, unit cohesion, and what they call a warrior ethos.
And the order is very direct. It argues that these standards, in the administration's view anyway, can't be watered down by, quote, political agendas or other ideologies.
And this is where you see the strategy taking shape. The order tries to ground this new policy in existing military regulations, things that seem pretty standard. Specifically, it links the ban directly to a Department of Defense instruction, Duty I 6130.03.
Okay, Duty I 6130.03. Why is that instruction so important here?
Well, Duty I 6130.03 is all about medical fitness standards. It's basically the rule book for who can join the military and who can stay in. It lists medical conditions that might require, excessive time lost from duty for treatment, things like bipolar disorders, eating disorders, prior psychiatric hospitalization, that kind of thing.
I see. So by citing this specific instruction, the administration seems to be trying to frame the exclusion not as, say, discrimination, but as the necessary standard for operational readiness.
That appears to be the approach.
Oh.
And the language used to put gender identity into that medical fitness category is, well, very specific. The order argues that expressing a, quote, false gender identity divergent from an individual sex conflicts with what's required of a service member an honorable, truthful, and disciplined lifestyle, even in one's personal life.
Wow, so it connects personal identity directly to fitness for duty based on truthfulness.
Precisely. The sources are clear. The policy states that when someone's identity doesn't align with their biological sex, as the administration defines it, this is not consistent with the humility and selflessness required of a service member.
So it's defining integrity partly by whether your gender identity matches your biological sex.
That's the assertion in the text, yes. So the purpose section sets that philosophical stage, but section 2, the policy section, that's the engine for implementation.
Or the how.
It tells the DoD to set maximum standards for, and it lists them. Readiness, lethality, cohesion, honesty, humility, uniformity, and integrity. And then it just flatly declares this policy is inconsistent with both gender dysphoria and, interestingly, shifting pronoun usage.
So it's a very deliberate, kind of holistic approach,
Yeah.
covering standards, conditions, and even language.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack that implementation then. Because signing an order is one thing, but making it happen across the entire military, changing entry standards in daily life for people already serving, how did they mandate that? And how fast?
The timeline was definitely aggressive, and it was designed to hit everything at once: recruitment, current personnel, even down to the facilities. The Secretary of Defense got a strict 60-day deadline.
60 days. For what?
To update that very medical standard we talked about, DoD I 6130.03, to formally include the new ban, both for people trying to join and for those already serving. Using that DoD I system was the technical lever they needed to pull to make the ban effective immediately across all branches.
But it wasn't just that medical files, right? You mentioned it went deeper into daily military life.
Oh, absolutely. That speaks to the goal of creating uniformity, maybe. The order specifically mandated two things for day-to-day life. First, directives to, quote, end invented and identification-based pronoun usage across the DoD.
Okay, so controlling language use. What was the second?
Physical spaces. It ordered that armed forces facilities, think sleeping quarters, changing rooms, bathrooms, must be used according to the service member's assigned sex. The only exception allowed was for, quote, extraordinary operational necessity.
And this wasn't limited to just the DoD branches.
No, the sources show how quickly other services were brought in. The Secretary of Homeland Security had to issue similar rules for the Coast Guard within just 30 days after the DoD finished its part.
That's incredibly fast policy synchronization across different departments.
It is, and we saw proof of that speed almost immediately. Less than 2 weeks after the EO was signed, February 10th, 2025, the Defense Secretary issued a memo.
And what did it do?
It immediately banned anyone with a history of gender dysphoria from joining. And crucially, it paused all gender transition-related medical care for current service members. Just like that. Implementation was instant.
Okay, here's a detail from the sources that really seems to carry a lot of weight, particularly on the human side. A memo from May 15th detailed the discharge process for transgender service members already serving.
Yes.
It specified using discharge code JDK. Why is that specific code so significant?
Yes. That detail is, well, it's huge. JDK is the code that's historically been used for soldiers considered a threat to national security.
A threat to national security.
Yes, and the sources point out the major impact this has. That classification can make it extremely difficult for someone to get civilian jobs later on or to get security clearances they might need. It's not just an administrative separation, it's a label usually reserved for disloyalty or being dangerous.
So the policy quickly went from stopping new people from joining to actively pushing out those already serving, with potentially career-ending consequences.
Exactly, and by August 2025, things escalated further. The U.S. Air Force announced it would deny retirement benefits to long-serving transgender members who were being separated under these new rules.
Wow. Even those with years of service, potentially close to retirement.
That's what the source material indicates. It shows the policy had real teeth, affecting veterans with established records.
Okay, so this rapid, broad, and frankly harsh implementation, it inevitably leads us to the courts, doesn't it?
It was always going to end up there. The moment they used this specific approach, linking identity to readiness and even national security codes, legal challenges were guaranteed.
Let's dive into that legal fight then. The first big lawsuit mentioned is Talbot v. Trump. Who brought that suit?
It was filed by 6 active duty service members and 2 people who wanted to join. Their main argument wasn't just about fairness, it was constitutional, hitting the Fifth Amendment. They argued the order basically made them unequal and dispensable.
And how did the government, the Department of Justice, defend the order?
Well, they made a very careful legal argument. Interestingly, they actually conceded that the specific service members challenging the ban were, quote, honorable, truthful, and disciplined, and had even made the country safer.
They conceded that. So what was the justification then?
Their argument was that transgender individuals were not similarly situated to cisgender males or females. They pointed to potentially different medical needs or physical standards as the reason the exclusion was justified, legally speaking.
Okay, but the initial reaction from the judge handling that case, U.S. District Judge Anna C. Reyes, was pretty strong, wasn't it? Not just dry legal analysis.
Not at all. Her comments, as reported, were incredibly critical. She described the order as showing, quote, unadulterated animus towards transgender people. She even called parts of the government's reasoning frankly ridiculous. That's unusually strong language from a federal judge.
Unadulterated animus. And did she rule based on that?
Yes, initially.
Yeah.
On March 18, 2025, Judge Reyes blocked the order. She found it was likely unconstitutional. That immediate pushback really highlighted the legal system's serious concerns about the policy's foundation.
But the story didn't end there. The Department of Justice had a response to Judge Reyes' comments and ruling.
They did, and it was a very unusual move. They filed a formal judicial complaint against Judge Reyes herself, accusing her of hostile and egregious misconduct.
A judicial complaint against the judge. That's rare.
Extremely rare against a sitting federal judge. It really shows how politicized and high stakes this whole fight became. It was like the administration challenging the court's own neutrality.
So other courts weighed in too.
Yes, another judge in New Jersey issued a temporary ban later in March, but the overall direction shifted in May.
How so?
On May 6, 2025, the Supreme Court got involved. They issued an order allowing the Trump administration to put the ban back into effect while the legal challenges worked their way through the lower courts, specifically the Ninth Circuit.
So the ban was back on, at least temporarily.
Correct. It was a significant, though temporary, win for the administration. It affirmed the executive's power to enforce the policy even while it was being heavily litigated.
Okay, so let's pull this all together for you, the listener. What we've seen is an executive order designed to achieve a major policy goal through really rapid technical steps.
Right. Using existing medical rules like DODI 6130.03, dictating everyday conduct like facility use and pronouns.
And applying serious consequences, like that JDK discharge code.
Yeah.
And all this happened while the policy was immediately tangled up in these complex, very emotional legal fights.
Fights that generated incredibly rare actions, like that judicial complaint, and shot up to the Supreme Court within months.
So the core tension that emerges from these sources seems pretty clear.
Yeah, it's the administration's stated focus on military excellence and readiness, using its authority to define that, versus the constitutional arguments about equality and dignity coming from service members.
Service members who, even the government's lawyers admitted, were otherwise honorable and fit to serve.
Exactly. The very definition of what makes someone fit for service is being tested legally and practically.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. When you have the executive branch acting as commander-in-chief, defining readiness in a very specific way, and then you have the court stepping in to protect the constitutional rights of service members, how does that balance of power ultimately get resolved?
Is military necessity, as defined by the executive, automatically more important than an individual's constitutional rights?
Or does using tools like that JDK code, tools with such heavy consequences, change the game in court? Does it shift the burden of proof? It's a debate where the rules of military service are really being hammered out right now, under intense scrutiny.